What improved your life so much, you wished you did sooner? For me, a triple 30 worked wonders. Every day spend 30 minutes cleaning, chores, 30 minutes exercising, and 30 minutes on self-improvement, which could be anything. Example: practicing guitar. Get home from work, knock off the triple 30 in 1.5 hours. And oh man, the sloth after that feels so good and so owned. And what's 1.5 hours? Nothing. Highly recommend it. Edit. Not only does it annihilate your housework, but its biggest effect on me was also kicking the ass of my depression and anxiety. It's not gone, but so much more manageable. I started viewing things as potential experiences, rather than just opportunities for achievement. Before that, for example, if I took a class, then I was only focused on the grade. If I couldn't get a good grade, I didn't like the class. Heck, I wouldn't even start a book if I thought it might be too hard or too long, and I might not finish it. Then I realized the purpose of classes and books and other things was to learn, and that hard ones were likely the ones I learned the most from, even if I didn't get the best grade. I started doing all sorts of stuff with the idea that I just wanted the experience. Even if I was the worst one out there, who cares? I wasn't there for the achievement. I wanted to learn things. This works socially as well, and I started taking way more risks, telling myself that, at the very least, it would be a learning experience. I saw a saying once: it's only a failure if you stop trying, otherwise, it's an experiment. I love it. Learning to set boundaries and say no. It's so important to be able to do this. And while most people realize the benefits for yourself, it's so much nicer to have a partner you know will say no and set boundaries. An ex of mine was really worried about messing things up and would rarely say no or set boundaries, even though I was constantly pushing her to set them, and I had to be really slow and pay attention to her as she tried to hide any discomfort so I would know. It stemmed from her past and how she was taught to act growing up. But we were able to work on it, and she was much better later on. While it's always important to watch out for your partner's reactions to make sure they're comfortable anyways, having someone who tells you when and when they don't feel comfortable makes a world of difference. All is to say, don't think it's selfish to say no and set boundaries. It's much better for everyone, especially yourself. Have a good day. Eating more healthily. Edited. Getting a lot of questions about how I did it. Here's some suggestions with the reminder that this works for me. May not work for you. If you really are serious about losing weight, consult a doctor or nutritionist. I was a carb fiend. Pasta, rice, bread. If it had a carb, I wanted 4 servings of it. Sugar is a carb too. So I started watching how many carbs I consumed a day. It shocked me. So now, I'm a lot more aware of how many carbs I eat. Building on number 1, serving sizes. To me, an open container of any size was a single serving. I pay attention to how much I'm supposed to eat. For snacks, I'm addicted to Smart Food. You can order a bunch of them in single serving sizes. Vegetables. I always ate veggies, now I eat more. What used to be 2/3 potatoes or pasta or rice with a meal is now 2/3 vegetables. Cut back on meat. We usually go meatless for dinner at least twice a week. I hardly eat it at breakfast, and lunch is about 50/50. I'd say 90% of the meat we do eat is chicken or fish. I have always loved to cook, but now I'm really stretching my wings and trying things I wouldn't do before. If you don't know how to cook, learn. Alton Brown or Rena Garten are great starting places. Don't be intimidated by it. You're not working for Gordon Ramsay. You're just feeding yourself. Learn spices. Steaming veggies suck. Roast that shit. Stir fry that shit. Eat it raw. Anything but steaming. Except boiling, that's worse. Bring your lunch to work. If you eat breakfast at work, bring that too. Same with snacks unless you can get healthy ones there. Don't beat yourself up if you have a cheeseburger. You are going to fail. I fail all the time. Every day is a new start. We only eat out or order out once a week. Water. More than you think. Learn to love to pee. I can't do this right now because I broke my foot, but a walk after every meal helps with your blood sugar. 10 minutes after breakfast and lunch, a half hour after dinner, all things in moderation. You can have butter or cheese or fried foods, just not every meal, and keep to what you're supposed to eat. It's a lot smaller than you think. Anyway, that's some of the stuff that I personally did. It worked for me. It may not work for you. I'm not a dietitian, just a dude who wanted to lose some weight. Finally talking with my, then, new family doctor, about my misuse of decongestant nose spray. He told me it's a common issue, and that there is help. 1.5 years of tapering off and 2 surgeries later, I used bad nose spray for the final time. I could kick myself for not talking about it for more than 20 years. The addiction's name is rhinitis medicamentosa. So it's not an addiction like alcohol, in the way there's a reward system in your brain, but it's a self-sustaining process. You have an infection and take nose spray. If you do it more than a few days, the reason why you took it at first is gone. But these sprays mean the nose clogs again. So you take nose spray against nose spray, which got worse and worse over the years. Many asked which spray I took. I largely gave up talking about any names. In this regard, by definition of stereotype, every Redditor except me is from the US. So your stuff has different names in the store than the German stuff I took. The nose spray I used is sold in Germany as Nazik, which has xylometazoline as main active agent. Some others asked about the surgeries, so here is more about the process. My new family doctor sent me to an end for help. He mentioned that next to the effect of the addiction, there's often a background to it. Turned out my concha were enlarged and my septum deviated. I must have broken my nose once. The ent insisted it must have happened, although I didn't know it. Maybe when I fell off my bike as toddler or so. Both limited how much air could pass and made it even more prone to clogging, which was boosted by the misuse of Nazik. The concha was cauterized, so a small intervention, about 30 minutes plus a few days sick leave. The septum deviation was corrected via full anesthesia surgery in the hospital by the ent, plus 2 weeks sick leave. The process took so long, as the ent started with tapering off by flooding the nose spray with hay feather and sea salt ones, effect, reducing bad nose spray from 5 times a day to 1 to 2 times. Then cauterizing, after which the nose needed to heal, reducing it to 0 to 1x per day, before the surgery, as the septum deviation is done in the hospital. I needed to wait a few weeks until I could do it, and afterward the nose needs some weeks to heal again. Setting rules for myself. After COVID started, I spent a year drinking and eating pizza every other day. And at that time, I thought, why shouldn't I keep doing it if I enjoy it? You can die anytime, so you should make the most out of what little time you have, right? The problem being, apart from health consequences, that it quickly becomes not enjoyable, and I realize now how miserable I was during that time. Most things are only fun when you do them occasionally. Sounds obvious, I know, but it was not obvious for my dumb ass. Now I have set rules for myself, that I can only drink on Sundays and only eat junk food once a month, and it's so much more rewarding and fun. Learning to be okay with saying no, and starting off all relationships, personal and professional, with healthy boundaries. You don't ever need an excuse to say no to. If you don't want to do something, don't feel like going out with friends that night. No thank you. Don't want to work an extra shift at your place of employment if it's not mandatory. No thanks, boss. Boundaries are amazing, and when set from the beginning, they are much easier to maintain for your own mental well-being. Letting my pride and ego take hits. I used to have been such a me person in my early life. When I allowed myself to be taken down a peg or two, I started having new perspectives on life and people around me. If you're wrong about something, don't double down on it. Just admit fault, learn, and keep it moving. We all make mistakes. Let's quit pretending we're somehow better than everybody else. Eating healthy. It's amazing, after you realize how much you feel like shit, after you just took down a double cheeseburger, extra large fries, and a large Coke, but at the time, you don't realize it and just think you're tired. Good eating habits and exercise changed my life. After diagnosed with diabetes 5 months ago, it was a slap on the face. I also grew up with tons of relatives and a mom who had it, but never learned to rein in their diet. I decided to eat as many greens as humanly possible. Fiber. At some point, my migraines left. At some point, my midday sleepiness went away. At some point, my pop marks and acne spots went away. And then finally, the excess 30 pounds that I've been trying to kick melted away. I don't have the itis after meals. I feel so comfortable going for an impromptu walk, hiking, lugging in large packages and grocery hauls. It's wild. I never realized I was probably eating only 2 cups of veggies a day. Cutting out toxic friends. After years of knowing someone, it can be hard to see that they are no longer the person they were when the relationship started. My childhood best friend grew into a manipulative, selfish prick. 4 years I hung out with him, almost every day after work, and always felt miserable afterward. Everyone around me questioned why I still spent time with him. I always made excuses that seem ridiculous in hindsight. I should have cut ties 10 years ago. I was very shy and self-conscious, but at some point, I started just living how I wanted. I already wasn't popular, so what was I risking? Girls still wouldn't be interested. I guess I just started doing things I'd been afraid to do before, including being more outgoing. I know this sounds like generic advice, but it really worked for me. Every time your brain says, "No, that wouldn't work out," or "No, what would people think?" or any other version of "No, don't try," it's a perfect opportunity to do something you feel drawn to. Dye your hair pink. Try painting, even though you know you'll suck at it. Fart and then say, "It was me, okay, maybe not the last one." Learning to get over myself. Nobody cares what I do, nobody is looking at me. And why should I care if they are? Nobody outside my circle has enough context to make accurate judgments about how I live. So why am I trying so hard to justify my decisions? As soon as I adopted that mindset, being alive got significantly less shitty. I do my best to be a decent person and to take care of myself, and the only opinions I care about are mine, my partner's, and my therapist's. Taking vitamin D supplements and getting a therapy lamp for the winter. Holy shit, does it make a difference? I realized after my first year of university that the reason I didn't do well in the winter semester was because I was feeling depressed and exhausted due to the lack of sunlight. I live in Canada, so the days are way shorter in winter. So when you leave before the sun rises, get home after it sets, and wear a coat all day, so your skin is exposed to no sunlight, you miss a lot of vitamin D. So I take vitamin D supplements each morning to make up for what I'm missing, and I use a therapy lamp to simulate sunlight in the morning. You feel way more energized and awake during the day. I would highly recommend it to anyone who feels exhausted in winter. P.S. If you're interested in a therapy lamp, look up SAD lamp or seasonal affective disorder lamp. I cut my mother out of my life a few years ago, and I wish I had done it as soon as I moved out, just as I did to my father. My life has been so much better since she hasn't been in it. I feel better about myself. I'm not being treated badly, and I can do what I want without fearing judgment. I'm glad I never reconciled, either. From what I hear from siblings, she hasn't changed a bit. She still has to be right all the time, she still lies about shit, and she still pulls authoritarian bullshit. I've pretty much written her off. She has 7 years left to come to me, apologize for the nasty shit she did, take responsibility for the aforementioned actions, and prove she has changed or is in the process. But if she doesn't do that within the next 7 years, there's no way in hell I'd reconcile with her. Fixing my relationship with food. Portion sizes. Decimating junk food intake back where it should be, a rare treat. Increasing veggie intake. Limiting red meat. Limiting dairy. Limiting refined sugars. I haven't actually stopped anything 100% cold turkey, chocolate, crisps, candy, takeout etc. Cold turkey, in that I don't punish, scorn myself for buckling and having some, but I've just wound it back completely. It's been a major contributor to why I'm 20 kilograms than I was in March 2022. This is a change I made only a few months ago, but it's been major. I struggle with clinical depression and extreme executive dysfunction, two conditions that exacerbate each other and have taken a lot of time out of my life over the past 20 years. I've been doing better, but still experience long periods of time when I'm barely functioning, and it's a miracle if I can even make it out of the house, let alone do anything productive. My therapist is a big advocate of being kind to oneself, and in theory that's the mentality we all should have. There's no reason to punish ourselves when we're already struggling. But for me, the idea that I should be kind to myself is far too easy to co-opt. As in, I'm not going to clean my kitchen because I'm tired, and the kind thing is to let myself sleep for 15 hours or watch Netflix. It's really not kind to let myself do that, and it only makes me feel much worse, both physically and mentally, but it's way too easy to fall into that trap and make it a habit. But on the same token, constantly valuing productivity over rest is the other nasty end of that spectrum. I burn myself out by being overly productive, and then have no time for creative pursuits or fun things or resting, and then I inevitably crash and end up right back in the pit of depression, where I started it. It's simply not sustainable. Finally, my therapist came up with a narrower concept to follow. Is what you're doing right now the restorative thing? Somehow this was the key for me. Every day, I ask myself if I'm doing something restorative, and if I'm not, I go do something that is. Most of the time, it's something productive or creative, and when it's not, I'm doing something fun or restful. There are times when lying in bed watching Netflix is the restorative thing, but usually I find the answer is somewhere else, and I'm much happier and more functional for it. Daily exercise. It doubled my energy for an hour out of my day, and that's just the benefit you get now. You have no idea the dividends you'll collect on that as you age. The key to aging gracefully is in staying active. A few years ago, I had a client in their mid-70s who basically never exercised, and they were pretty much confined to a wheelchair and had a diminished quality of life. This past year, I worked with a couple who were both 81 years old and made a commitment to staying active most days of the week, doing resistance training, mobility work, and balance exercise for many, many years. They still were going on hiking trips and cross-country skiing adventures while I was working with them. In conclusion, as a past martial arts instructor told us, The best way to stay in shape is to never get out of shape. Quitting drinking is the best thing I've ever done for my mental and physical health, and it's done nothing but improve my relationships. The last year and a half have been the best I've ever had. I quit when I was 29, and my whole life changed for the better. I remember all my nights and celebrations. I no longer had to make a list of people to apologize to every morning after a get-together or party. 10 out of 10 would recommend. Reading books way more. I've gotten really into audiobooks. I got rid of satellite radio, because it's basically all I listen to in the car anymore. Makes chores go by much easier too. Mowing the lawn. Pop in the earbuds. Shoveling the snow. Earbuds. Laundry. Dishes. Earbuds. Just having a drink by the fire in the evening. Earbuds. I get really into big, epic, multi-book series, and it's just such a richer escape than you get watching TV. I stopped living my life just waiting for the weekend. When you work 5 days a week and have just 2 days off, it's not good to be always waiting for those 2 days. You can plan something meaningful or fun every day, even if it's just a small thing. This is actually a life hack, trust me. Life is a marathon, not a sprint, and you must find a way to enjoy every day. At the end of the day, you should say, "It was a great day" or "a day well spent." My social skills. I had an epiphany a few months back that I was way more scared of people than I have a reason to be. I've been socially anxious for the majority of my childhood, and the effects of it is definitely a running thread throughout my personality. After a period of being out of school, I came back, and this epiphany hit me. I was lucky enough to realize that people are not malicious. A vast majority of us are very nice. So I started being myself more. I initiated conversation more, and I accepted the embarrassment that sometimes came from not having flawless social skills. It was an awesome period, and whilst I'm not meeting as many people day to day right now, I feel so much less stress around people. But this wasn't an active choice I made. It came from working on my mental health and view of people for months. And along with that, just luck that my anxiety let up enough to allow me to change.